Good day all. I'm pleased to be here today because since our last web conference, many things have happened and will happen with our new BAPI's Fast Growth Strategic Plan. First of all, I'd like to introduce you to Jean-Philippe Milon. For those of you who are not aware, we have decided to strengthen quantum genomics governance by separating the functions of Chairman and Chief Executive Officer. Jean-Philippe Milon is named CEO, and I stay Chairman of the Board of Directors. Before joining us in 2013 as part-time, Jean-Philippe, doctor in pharmacy, was president of Bayer Healthcare France, a pharmaceutical group that works closely in the field of cardiovascular diseases, and a member of the International Executive Committee of Bayer Healthcare in charge of mergers and acquisitions, licensing, and business development. His experience is a precious asset at a time when we are undertaking new stages of development. I will now turn the floor over to Jean-Philippe, who will introduce you to Quantum Genomics' 3-year strategic plan, BAPI's Fast Growth.
Thank you, Lionel. I'm here to lead our 3-year strategic plan with the other members of the Executive Committee. Bruno Bess, who joined us in 2017 as Chief Medical Officer, bringing his expertise in cardiology along with his experience in medical management of the heart of Big Pharma. Fabrice Balavoine, our VP Research and Development, who has been part of Quantum Genomics adventure since its inception, and Mark Caraco, our Chief Financial Officer. This plan, that we have named BAPI for Growth, will allow us to enhance our research program and to sign a partnership agreement with a pharmaceutical company within 2 years, who will take over clinical development and put the products from the BAPI technology on the market. In the meantime, I'm pleased to present to you the 3D movie we have produced to illustrate the BAPI's mode of action.
Cardiovascular diseases are a major public health issue. They are the leading cause of mortality in the world, with 17 million deaths per year. This figure is growing with aging population and with increased risk factors. Today, 1 out of 3 adults suffers from high blood pressure, while heart failure affects 40 million people. The newest drugs used in hypertension and heart failure inhibit the peripheral renin-angiotensin-aldosterone system, which is one of the key elements of the cardiovascular system regulation. Despite existing treatments, often used in combinations, at least 30% of hypertensive patients are poorly controlled or resistant. Thus, new treatments with different mechanisms of action are needed. Also, mortality in heart failure remains high. 50% of heart failure patients will die within 5 years after diagnosis. Quantum Genomics is developing a new therapeutic pathway targeting the renin-angiotensin system at the brain level, cerebral RAS, to treat those poorly controlled hypertensive patients as well as heart failure patients. The cerebral RAS controls different factors involved in hypertension regulation. Angiotensin III is a key protein in cerebral RAS. Catherine Lawrence-Cortez demonstrated that under the action of brain aminopeptidase A, angiotensin II will be metabolized into angiotensin III, which is the active peptide at the brain level. In vivo studies demonstrated an overactivation of the brain aminopeptidase A enzyme in hypertensive animals and in heart failure animals. By decreasing aminopeptidase A activity, blood pressure is normalized and heart function is improved. After conversion by aminopeptidase A, the angiotensin III will bind to the angiotensin I receptors in the brain. The binding of angiotensin III to these receptors will activate 3 angiotensinergic pathways involved in blood pressure increase and heart function deterioration. Quantum Genomics is developing a new class of molecules called brain aminopeptidase A inhibitors, or BAPIs, that inhibit aminopeptidase A and angiotensin III production in the brain. After oral intake and absorption by the gastrointestinal tract, the molecule QGC001 reaches the brain barrier. This molecule is a prodrug that releases the active agent in the brain. Then, the active agent selectively and competitively inhibits the key aminopeptidase A enzyme and prevents the conversion of angiotensin II to angiotensin III. So angiotensin II will no longer be metabolized into angiotensin III. The molecule developed by quantum genomics leads to a normalization of angiotensin III synthesis, which regulates blood pressure through its triple mechanism of action. First, vasopressin secretion decreases, which will increase diuresis and reduce vasoconstriction. Occasionally, an activation of the baroreflex arch is observed, directly linked to the control of heart rate. Finally, a decrease in sympathetic nerve activity is observed, leading to a decrease in vascular resistance, which also improves cardiac function. This very promising triple mechanism of action can act simultaneously as monotherapy on the vessels, the heart, and the kidney. BAPIs represent an innovative treatment and may offer hope to millions of hypertensive and heart failure patients.
A new step in our development. We have received an international non-proprietary name, so-called INN, for our drug candidates QGC001 and QGC101 from the World Health Organization. It will be named Firibastat. So, I advise you to follow the ongoing studies. May I remind you that you can ask any question during our presentation. We will answer at the end. I will now turn the floor over to Bruno Bess, who is going to give you an update on our ongoing studies in hypertension and heart failure.
Thank you very much, Jean-Philippe. Let me start with hypertension and our New Hope study. First, Professor Keith Ferdinand from New Orleans, who is the principal investigator of the New Hope study and also a member of the Scientific Advisory Board, will emphasize the unmet need in hypertension.
High blood pressure or hypertension is the leading cause of death throughout the world. Hypertension is directly related to cardiovascular disease, that's heart disease and strokes, with a 10-year risk of dying. It causes heart attacks, strokes, heart failure, kidney disease, peripheral arterial disease, and a wide range of heart and vascular conditions. So perhaps the most important thing we can do worldwide is control blood pressure. When it increases 20 millimeters of mercury for the systolic or the upper number, 10 millimeters of mercury for the diastolic, it doubles the risk of having heart disease, stroke, or dying.
Are all Americans individually equal facing hypertension?
Across the population, there are some decreases and increases in the rates of hypertension depending on ethnicity. For instance, African Americans have higher rates of hypertension. Across all of the various ethnic minorities, including African Americans, Hispanics, and Asian Americans, blood pressure control is less. So in the populations who self-define as African American, there tends to be an increase in hypertension, more complications from hypertension, more salt sensitivity, and more difficult to control hypertension. In that population, the new guidelines suggest starting with a thiazide-type diuretic or calcium channel blocker. There have been studies that have shown ACE inhibitors and angiotensin receptor blockers are less efficacious, in other words, don't do as well lowering blood pressure in those populations. So we're looking for ways to control blood pressure in ethnic minorities, specifically African Americans. Quantum genomics has a molecule which may be beneficial in African Americans and other racial minorities who are sensitive to salt. If you look at this molecule, in the animal models using the rats, those which were salt sensitive appeared to do well with the quantum genomics molecule. Perhaps in our clinical trial, we can show that lowering blood pressure is efficacious in those patients who may be salt sensitive. That includes African Americans and other ethnic minorities, especially with overweight and obesity status.
As to remind, our New Hope study will enroll 250 patients at high cardiovascular risk in the US. Subjects will be with primary hypertension, with a higher blood pressure level than in the previous trial, overweight or obese, and with the goal to enroll at least 50% of subjects from minorities, especially African American, who are more likely to suffer from salt-dependent hypertension. The good news is that we are recruiting faster than expected. Half of the patients have been already enrolled into the trial, and we are also very happy that the population enrolled so far is aligned with our expectation. And additionally, the safety profile of firebastat is very good in the study. Thus, we are working hard to complete the trial by the end of the year ahead of time. And we are already working on the next step for hypertension, hopefully with the once-a-day formulation that is going to be developed. And now Fabrice Balawan will update you about this program.
Thank you, Bruno. I confirm that we plan to actively pursue the development of once-a-day formulations. As you may know, the current formulations that we used in our clinical studies are immediate-release capsules that are given twice daily, meaning in the morning and in the evening. This choice was made to maximize the patient exposure to the drug. However, the standard formulation for the treatment of hypertension is a once-a-day pill. So, therefore, our objective is to initiate by the end of the year a clinical study to assess in healthy volunteers the pharmacokinetic parameters obtained with the sustained-release tablet we have already developed, and compare them with those obtained with immediate-release capsules. So it is important to note that this work will enhance the attractiveness of our product in view of a partnership with pharmaceutical companies. As a matter of fact, all the pharma companies, and especially the Japanese companies with whom we are having discussions, see the development of once-a-day tablet in a very positive light. Indeed, it brings a strong value to our product because by 2019, we could have an advanced formulation close to the one that will be used when the drug reaches the market. It also allows us to reduce the daily cost of treatment. So in a way, it has a strong impact on drug pricing and market access strategy. In addition, with once-a-day tablets in hand, we should increase the chances of success of our future clinical study. We know that adherence to treatment is a very important parameter for the efficacy of an antihypertensive drug, and we know that patients are more adherent to once-a-day tablet rather than to formulation used twice daily. And last but not least, once-a-day tablet will also simplify the development of firebastat in combination with other antihypertensive drugs, which, for the most part, are given once daily. So we'll now hand over to Bruno again, who will present our program on heart failure.
As you may know, heart failure is a major public health concern. First, because this is a very common disease affecting 14 million people worldwide, and because despite several existing treatments, it has a high morbidity and mortality. Patients are dying within 5 years after diagnosis. Coronary artery disease, and especially myocardial infarction, accounts for at least 50% of heart failure. Professor Franz Lienen from Ottawa will now summarize the state of the art in heart failure and his expectation for the new class.
At the moment, still the 1 year mortality, for example, of heart failure can be as high as 15%, what is higher than for many forms of cancer. At the moment, there are a number of treatments available for the management of heart failure. Unfortunately, they are not very effective for prevention of progressive heart failure. For example, they can block the increases in return of blood to the heart. They can decrease the blood pressure. They can decrease the effects of the sympathetic nervous system on the heart. All of them work fairly individually, and therefore patients will need a number of medications to try and help the symptoms and the progression of heart failure. And that means then that many patients end up on 4, 5, 6 different treatments, what can be very cumbersome and often causes side effects. So instead of focusing on each of these peripheral mechanisms individually, one is considering at the moment what is causing the increase in the activity of these mechanisms. The brain, in a sense, integrates all stimuli coming from the heart to the brain, and then from the brain to the periphery explaining all the different mechanisms that go up. So if you now interfere with the mechanisms in the brain that are being activated, one can thereby then inhibit the increases in the mechanisms peripherally. To date, we had no medications that could specifically target the brain. So some of them would act in the periphery, and if you would give them in high doses, they would also get into the brain, but then that would lead to a number of side effects in the periphery. The new molecule or the new classes of agents that is being developed by quantum genomics focuses specifically on these brain pathways that are being activated and then contribute to all the activation of the peripheral mechanisms. And by doing that, you in a sense direct an orchestra how to go, and that then can prevent an activation of these peripheral mechanisms, and that can hopefully lead to prevention of the progression of heart failure and hopefully the progression of to death.
Because of the good safety profile of firebastat in the QUID-HF study, we have decided to launch the phase 2b study before final results are available. This new trial in heart failure will be launched by the end of this year. Professor Gilles Montalesco from Pitié-Salpêtrière Hospital in Paris kindly accepted to be the principal investigator of the study, and we are building a steering committee with both US experts and European experts. We are discussing with people from Harvard Medical School, Duke University, and Spanish, German, and Dutch experts. The study will enroll patients following myocardial infarction with a reduced ejection fraction, and we expect to get the first result by the second half of 2020.
Our intellectual property is one of our major assets. Today, we have a strong and worldwide protection of firebastat. Fabrice Balavoine, VP Research and Development, will provide you with more information.
Thank you, Jean-Philippe. So patent covering the crystal forms of firebastat prepared for our clinical studies have been granted already in several territories such as in the US, Japan, China, Eurasia, and Israel. These patents guarantees us exclusive rights to use firebastat in a pharmaceutical composition for the treatment of hypertension and heart failure until at least Q3 2031. And indeed, we may even have a 5-year extension for the expiry date of some of these patents once the drug reaches the market. In addition, we have protected the manufacture process of firebastat and its use with antihypertensive drugs such as enalapril or valsartan, and several patents have been already granted. So in the framework of our strategic plan BAPI's Fast Growth, we want to accelerate the review of the pending application in order to have several new patents granted by the end of the year, especially those covering firebastat as an active product ingredient in Europe and South Korea. In parallel, we plan to file several new patent applications in 2018 in order to raise barriers to entry by potential competitors. These new applications will cover the pharmaceutical formulation we have developed and several new chemical series of brain aminopeptidase A inhibitors identified in our medicinal chemistry program. I will now hand over to Mark, our Chief Finance Officer, who will briefly present the financing plan we have already secured to support our programs and our strategy.
Good day, everyone. Let me share with you some financial considerations. Our cash position at the end of December 2017 was 11.1 million euros. The additional financing requirement to support our 2019-2020 business plan is 24 million euros. This is why we implemented in March 2018 an equity line financing facility structured and backed by Kepler Chevreux, capped at 24 million euros over a 3-year period. The first tranche of 6 million euros can be drawn according to New Hope trial acceleration. The next 18 million euros will be used depending on the financing needs. They will also be submitted to the approval of the shareholders' meeting in June 2018. The shares will be offered at a maximum discount of 7.5% based on the weighted average share price of the 2 preceding days. It is important to note that this financing line is extremely flexible. It combines the flexibility of a confirmed line of credit with the stability of resources resulting from a classical capital increase. It will therefore secure the execution of our strategic plan. It can be utilized or stopped at the company's discretion, which strengthens our operational flexibility. This concludes our overall presentation. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much, Mark. It's now time to answer all your questions. In fact, we have already received a lot of questions. And the first question is for Lionel. Let me read the question. Are you leaving Quantum Genomics? Don't you believe in the future of the company? Lionel?
Thank you, GP. For sure not. As I said previously, we have decided to strengthen the governance of Quantum Genomics by separating the chairmanship of the board of directors and the general management. I remain chairman of Quantum Genomics, and Jean-Philippe Milon is the CEO of the company. And of course, I intend to get involved in the development of Quantum Genomics with Jean-Philippe and the team, but also with the scientific advisory board. I also remain one of Quantum Genomics' main individual shareholders, and as such, I'm particularly interested in our company's success, and in particular, our 3-year strategic plan, BAPI's Fast Growth. I truly believe that Jean-Philippe's experience in the pharmaceutical industry is a precious asset and a perfect match at a time when we are undertaking new stages of development and entering a new phase of maturity.
Thank you very much, Lionel. Let us check the second question.
Yes. So this is an easy question for me. Bruno Bess is speaking. The question is, on which date will the result of the new UP study will be presented? So, as I said, the new UP study will be completed by the end of the year. Therefore, we will present the top-line result in early 2019.
Thank you, Bruno. And next question, let us check the question. That's for you also, Bruno.
Yeah, this is for me also, but a little bit more difficult. The question is, do you have ideas of the result of the new UP study, and are you confident? So the study is currently running. So indeed, we've got no idea of the efficacy result. Nevertheless, we already know that the safety is good. The drug is well tolerated in more than 100 patients recruited so far, which is the largest cohort treated with firibastat so far. Also, I may say that the fast recruitment is a good indication that the investigators are really confident into the drug.
Thank you, Bruno. What about the next question? What about your current discussions with pharmaceutical companies? So let me take over this question. So this is Jean-Philippe Milon speaking. Yes, indeed, we work closely with pharmaceutical companies, and mainly the ones who are involved in cardiology. And we have recently noted considerable renewed interest following the Johnson & Johnson partnership with Idorsia. As you may know, Johnson & Johnson made an upfront payment of $230 million and will pay royalties in the range of 20 to 50%. And Idorsia is developing a product for the treatment of resistant hypertension, but it has a mechanism of action that is not as innovative as firibastat. So for sure, we regularly update pharmaceutical companies on the progress of our clinical trials, and many of them have already shown interest. And the interest from laboratories, from the companies that we are in contact with, is based on point number one, a new therapeutic class in a vast market that has experienced a lack of therapeutic innovation for 15 years. The second is a new mechanism of action. And last but not least, an innovative product for patients whose treatment is failing them and who are dying from complications associated with their hypertension. So, for sure, the results of the New Hope trial will be a decisive factor in the success of our exchanges. By the way, we have decided also to focus all our human and financial resources in development of firibastat in human, because animal health is a small market. It's less than 5% of the total market for firibastat. What about the next question now? By when do you intend to publish the results of QuidHF? Bruno?
Yes. As you remember, QuidHF is a pilot study. It is the first administration of firibastat in human with heart failure. And with a surrogate endpoint, the endpoint is NT-proBNP, which is a biomarker, and a short duration of treatment. So the study is running, but based on the first safety result we already got, we have decided to launch a larger phase 2b trial, which will be a true proof of concept with a more relevant endpoint, with a longer duration of treatment. Therefore, we will stop QuidHF as soon as we will start the new trial.
Okay, thank you, Bruno. So this was this question. What about new question? So this one we have on the screen. By when do you intend to publish the result of QuidHF? You just answered this question. Next question was the equity line with Kepler-Chevreux drawn down. So this is for our Chief Financial Officer, Marc Caraco.
Okay, so in fact, the first tranche of 6 million euros relative to the financing line with Kepler-Chevreux has not been utilized so far. In fact, this will depend on our financing needs.
Okay, thank you, Mark. Next question. This is for you also. What's your annual cash burn rate? This is for you, Mark.
Yes, you're right. That's another financial question. So let me remind you that in 2017, our cash consumption was 7.8 million euros. Due to the acceleration and completion of the New Hope study in 2018, the cash burn will be higher this year. Very likely, it will be above 10 million euros.
Okay. Thank you, Mark. Do we have other questions or not? Yeah, just got one. This is Max Jacobs, Director of Healthcare Research from Edison Group. I have a question on the timing of the data from the New Hope study. If the study is completed by the end of 2018, so by the end of this year, when might we see the top-line data? Bruno, this is for you.
Yeah, I think it's more or less what I already said. The study will be completed by the end of this year. The top line, we just need few weeks to get the top line result, and therefore we will present them beginning of 2019.
Okay. Thank you, Bruno. Do we have other questions? It looks that we don't have other questions. So, thank you for listening, and thank you for the relevance of your question. In fact, we got more than 8 questions, and we will keep you informed about the work in progress on a regular basis. Again, thank you very much.